Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Today, as always, we have the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm at AH Malcolm on your Twitter scorecards when Twitter is working and you're not rate limited. Or so. That's apropos of nothing at all. I mean, I haven't been frustrated in the last few days over rate limitations, Andrew.
I must not be very important because I don't even know what it means. It hasn't bothered me.
That's because you're royalty.
Yeah.
You're royalty. That's the reason why.
That's funny. So last week, I suppose it was one of the young Asian women, but was always trying to contact me, and I just drive Asian women crazy. I got a direct message, and it said, "So are you really royalty? What is a Prince of Twitter?" Yeah, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm also a regent," and then I blocked her.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's. I've noticed that. That my attractiveness quotient has gone up quite a bit on Twitter and Instagram of late, because I've got all these, and primarily Asian, but not entirely, all these new accounts following me with lovely young women.
With 3 followers. Yeah.
Yeah. Or private, right? You have to, Somehow commerce is involved in this somehow, and I don't want to find out how. One way or another.
Yeah.
As Robert Heinlein once wrote, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, isn't it funny, the things that go on and that they just come to seem normal?
Yeah, I'd say that's true in our profession too, and may as well use that as a segue because Donald Trump had an interview yesterday with Maria Bartiromo and made a number of claims. I mean, some of this stuff is kind of nonsensical that, supposedly he would settle the Ukraine war in 24 hours.
Yeah, at most, because he'd double the amount of aid that we're sending to Ukraine unless Putin agreed to end the war. Now that's got to be some sort of cognitive dissonance for his followers and for Tucker Carlson, who's arguing the exact opposite, that we shouldn't be sending any aid at all. I mean, well, he's a peacemaker, Ed. You have to realize that he's a capitalist peacemaker.
Well, that's one interpretation of it. I know that he claims there wouldn't have been a war if he'd been president, and maybe, but I mean, this thing's been going on in sort of slow motion since 2014, and it didn't happen on his watch, and that much is true. But
in fact,
that's really about the United States.
No, you're right. In fact, Putin didn't start organizing until the invasion, until Trump was out of office 2 months.
Right.
I mean, it's he invaded he took over Crimea in 2014.
Right, 2014. That's right.
Right, and then 22, he invaded Ukraine. But in the middle, there was 4 years of Trump. I think that's probably got a significant element of truth to it, but it's not necessarily a reason to elect him now. It's too late.
Well, yeah, it's too late for that. And again, I mean, even if you were arguing that he has a better policy on Ukraine than Biden, he's not really articulating a different policy.
No, he's not. What he does have is unpredictability. And he said, remember when I don't remember if it was in his Muslim speech in Riyadh or what, but he did say that American diplomacy had become too predictable. And that's true. It had, and it is unpredictability. You can argue about it, that, the media wanted to make it bad. Oh, he called Kim Il Sung, or not Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Un, a bad name and threatened fire and destruction. But it works, I mean, if the world takes you for granted as a little kitty cat, then you lose your clout. And
Right.
Trump is using the same thing, unpredictability, with the over the debate next month. I said, well, I don't think I'm going to come. Oh, gee, he won't come. The ratings will be terrible. And then he shows up or he doesn't show up, and nothing changes.
Well,
It's
he
a
didn't show up
tactic.
in Iowa. I mean, he said
He
he was.
didn't show up once, and he didn't win it, did he?
No, I'm talking about this past week. The
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the
Right.
the forum that Tucker Carlson was hosting. I mean, if you're going to have a friend, if Trump, Tucker Carlson's about the friendliest interlocutor that that Trump is going to get, and he didn't show up for that. And Tucker Carlson was making a big deal out of Ukraine. I mean, Mike Pence's answer on that was terrible. And this, I mean, he's an experienced politician. He's a smooth guy. And he let his distaste of Tucker Carlson get the best of him and got flustered. Asa Hutchinson is just Asa. I mean, Asa Hutchinson is, Captain Happy to be there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense. And then he addressed that yesterday. Did you see his discussion of that on Bartiromo show? Let me pull this up because I don't want to misquote him, because it was an interesting argument. I mean, I don't agree with it, and I've got by the time this comes out, I will have had a long post up on this, but right now it isn't published yet.
So everybody should still click.
Yeah, definitely you should still click. Here you go. So Maria Bartiromo says, are you going to do the debate? This is the Fox News debate, right? Next month. So she's kind of got a little bit of a cheering interest in this. She's at Fox Business. This is over on Fox News Channel, but still Fox. And Donald Trump says, well, it's quite an easy question normally. Ronald Reagan didn't do it, and a lot of other people didn't do it. When you have a big lead, you don't do it. And we have a lead of 50 and 60 points in some cases, and some of these people are at zero. Ron DeSanctis, or as I call him, Ron DeSanctimonious, is down to, he's in the teens now, and I'm at 50 and 60 and 65, and I even saw one today at 70. And so you're leading people by 50 and 60 points, and you say, why would you be doing a debate? It's actually not fair. Why would you let somebody that's at 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 be popping you with questions? Now, there's a whole blizzard of stuff in that answer.
Yeah.
One is that his number is in the 50s. It hasn't been 60 in over a month in the aggregate, right? I'm looking at the aggregate, the RCP aggregate. He hasn't had 70 in ages. I mean, even in an individual poll, I don't know that he's ever had a 70. So I'm not sure where he's getting that. But he's not leading people by 50 or 60 points either. He's leading DeSantis by roughly 25 points, which is big. That's big enough. And he's got a point here. But the Ronald Reagan thing, I argue, is him saying that he should be treated as an incumbent. And he's not an incumbent.
Yeah, absolutely. When Reagan did show up, are we talking 80?
No, he's talking 84.
84.
Reagan showed up for debates in 1980. I mean, that was the famous "I'm paying for this" microphone moment with
right.
Bush in New Hampshire, right? So now he was
right. Well, then he showed up in 84 and he destroyed Mondale with that one.
No, he's talking about. Yeah, he did.
That was
primary debates. They didn't have any primary debates because he was the actual incumbent.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's what Trump. Yeah, and Trump is analogizing to that without acknowledging the fact that he's not actually an incumbent president. The last time
Ed, detail. You've got to see the big picture here. Yeah, come on, Ed. Don't get flustered.
But I mean, let's, and this is something I bring up in the post, right? Which is that let's just take that argument. Let's just accept that argument. He's the incumbent because he was a former president. And so he's an incumbent and should be treated as an incumbent. If you were an incumbent, or not you, because if you were an incumbent, you'd have 95%.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. Yeah.
But if you are looking at an incumbent whose RCP average is 53% in a primary,
that's right.
Wouldn't you be saying this guy needs to be challenged? He needs to go out and make a case for himself again. I mean,
right.
They're already saying that about Joe Biden, and his numbers are 10 points higher, which is still not good, by the way. As an incumbent at 63.5%, I think Democrats really have something to worry about here.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that why one reason why Lyndon Johnson pulled out in 68 was his numbers were so low. It shocked everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, it went to the I mean, this is how presidential campaigns have changed. You've talked about this a ton. I mean, this was in February of 1968, and Eugene McCarthy either beat him or came close to beating him in New Hampshire. And that's when he pulled out and other people jumped into the race. Nowadays, I mean, that's because people got into the race in like December of 1967, not December of 1966. You know, Eugene McCarthy had only been campaigning for a couple of months. And what New Hampshire showed was that LBJ was not popular in his own party and therefore, you know, was not going to do well in a general election. And if I'm looking at Trump's argument that he's an incumbent and he's at 53.5%, and you've got one candidate in there who's providing at least a serious challenge, that's Ron DeSantis. Everybody else is sort of below the 10% mark. I mean, what does that tell you about his incumbency? It tells me that his party is not enthused by him.
No, it's not. And you don't even need a poll for that. If I remember correctly, and it's been 20 years since I was in New Hampshire, independents can vote in either party. So in 68, when Lyndon did so poorly, that wasn't necessarily all Democrats.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's true of a lot of other states. You
can declare.
You can declare. You have to choose for the primary. You have to choose a ballot, right? That's true here in Texas, by the way. You don't register as a Republican or as a Democrat. You can register with the party to do that, but officially, everybody's just registered as a voter. When you get to the
that's right. Because
just choose a ballot.
In 2008, wasn't it Rush who was trying to get Republicans to vote for Hillary in the Texas primary, so to beat Obama?
I am trying to remember which direction that was. If he was trying to get people to vote for Obama to beat Hillary or vote for Hillary to beat Obama, whatever it was, his whole thing was just cause chaos, right? That was he called it Operation Chaos, right?
Yeah.
That's what that's about. Yeah, because a lot of states you just choose which ballot you want to vote in.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that. California, you could only vote in the one you were declared in. If you were a Republican. Yeah.
Not anymore because it's an all-in primary in California.
That's right.
Even less. Yeah, I think they should have party primaries still in California.
I have an irrelevant anecdote, but I just love it. I was a poll worker at some point, whatever it was, and it was a primary in California, and it's a small town, so everybody knew everybody. And Ron Porter came in, and he's the town plumber. And he came in, and the poll was crowded, and he yelled, "I'm a Republican. Can I vote here?" And the poll judge stood up and said, "Not if you're a plumber."
Pretty good.
Yeah, it was on the spur of the moment. It was a very good-natured, jolly atmosphere.
Sure.
It was an interesting evening, long day.
So along those lines, I'll just say this. I get his argument though about being 25 points up in the polls and not wanting to do debates. that, I mean, he's using the wrong numbers and he's using
Yeah,
misleading.
yeah,
He's
no,
not up
that's
60 points. He's up about
self-serving.
25.
Yeah,
But
self-serving.
but I get that argument strategically, short term. I understand why. Well, if I'm leading by 25 points, I don't want to give people opportunities to cross me up and to make me lose support. The problem
Right.
is that
Yeah.
his support is very limited even within the party. I mean, right now he's got about half the party behind him, roughly, 52, 53%, at 53.5% right now at RCP. Um, on the polling that he himself is citing, I should say, because if people start saying, well, that's just the polls, those are the polls that Trump is using to justify this. He needs to close the sale with 47% of the party. And the fact, and especially if he thinks that he's an incumbent and he's, entitled to this, which is really how this comes across, it's clear that he's got a lot of work to do. And that means he's got to, yeah.
And he's always had trouble. He's always had trouble getting a majority. Yeah, I mean, in both federal national elections, he didn't. In the primary in 2016, he won.
He didn't get majorities. He got pluralities. That's
yes, exactly. I think in New Hampshire, the rest of the field got like in the high 60s. And in South Carolina, Rubio and Cruz got 42% and he got like 32. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's a pattern. It's a pattern with him. He'll cite the polls that are self-serving.
Well, and that's true of everybody, though. I don't begrudge him that, but he just needs to state them properly. He's not up 60 points over people. He's up 25 points over people. He sometimes gets as high as 60 points in a Republican primary. But again, if you think you're the incumbent, and to a certain extent, he kind of is, that's not a good number.
No,
the fact that
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. One other thing about the primary I want to talk with you about is Ron DeSantis is going to sit down with Jake Tapper at CNN
tomorrow or Tuesday. Yeah,
Tuesday. As this goes up, it'll be then. And Trump is the one who sort of opened the door to this. He agreed to do the CNN town hall forum. He also does interviews with people like New York Times' Maggie Haberman and all this kind of stuff. And there are a lot of people saying, well, why is DeSantis, going to Jake Tapper and CNN for this? Because CNN is terrible. But I think DeSantis is looking at this in a similar way, which is that at some point you have to move your.
That's right.
You have to expand your attraction, not just within the narrow channel that you're already in,
That's right.
section of the party, but you have to find ways to bring more people in. And I'm not sure I would have gone with CNN first. I think I might have done. I think I might have tried Fox and Brett Baer, who's a tough interviewer.
Yeah.
And who would have treated him tough.
Yeah. Which is why he probably didn't. Well, this is practice. You remember in 2008, just before the vice presidential debate, Sarah Palin did an exclusive interview with somebody. I don't remember if it was Rush or what, with somebody. And what that was practice. And what this could be tomorrow or Tuesday is practice. You're absolutely right. DeSantis has to broaden his appeal well beyond Republicans, even if it's just to encourage non-Republicans to cross over and to vote for him. It's practice. And he's got to get his foot in the door with the American public. The media is all over him because they desperately want Trump. The media is all over him. Oh, he's fading, he's stumbling, he's in great crisis. He might even quit. I mean, it's all crap. But it sells for that day. And then tomorrow, nobody remembers today when they're reading that stuff. Right. So it's practice. He's got to get his foot in the door, and this could well do it. If he has a great showing and people are going, wow, that's pretty impressive. And then the Fox debate comes and he has a good showing and Trump isn't there, leaving himself wide open, or he is there and he acts like a fool with blowing his top and calling names. And you look at DeSantis And then you look at Trump, and a lot of people will go, geez, there's that familiar Trump. And here's a reasonable alternative. So yeah, it's a smart move. It, it, it would make me, if I was him, I would be uptight. But those guys, that's the thing I learned when I was in politics. You look at what they do and confrontations and all that stuff, and you think, oh, geez, boy, but they love it. I mean, if they're in that field, they love it. They love this. And Bill Clinton was the worst, but George W. Bush, he liked it too. Like to walk on the high wire. Can I do it? Will I do it? Or look at everybody's watching. I could make a mistake. They just love that. And it was an intriguing insight into the personality of these people. And I don't mind it, and I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that was something that surprised me.
Well, yes. And they're risk takers. Some of them are adrenaline junkies. I mean, Trump certainly is that. And some of them are, but it gets wearing on you after a while. I mean, a lot of presidents grow old in office, right? I mean, if you're there for 8 years, you're going to get 8 years older anyway. Some age more obviously than others. Trump actually never did that because he's such a attention seeker and high wire act anyway that it didn't wear on him the way it did on others. I mean, Obama, and again, he spent 8 years in the office, so you're going to look 8 years. If you're a normal human being, you're going to look at least 8 years older when you come out, but he looked a lot older.
And people get tired. And that's what happens in the primaries. People, they have these crushes, and they're political crushes where, there was a little bit of a bubble one on the Ramaswamy, where
still undergoing too, still going.
Yeah, we kind of like it. And 4 months from now, no one will be able to pronounce his name like me. It's it's that test drive is what it is, and it's not necessarily wrong. I mean, in a way, this is what primaries are for. They're for a party, not for chaos seekers. It's for a party to pick the person they like the best. But my theory all along has been, and I wrote about this last fall even, debates are not accurate measures of a president. I mean, they're just not. They test zingers. They test your poise under pressure, under lights, your ability to interrupt, to dominate the screen, your magnetism. Trump has it. Your magnetism, media magnetism. But it's got nothing to do with, will this guy or girl be a good president? Because presidents have hundreds of people working for them, and they don't have to know right off the tip of their tongue who is president of Pakistan, prime minister. They don't have to know what the price of milk is in Des Moines, which are all these trick questions that the media is going to throw at them to show that, they're out of touch or they're in touch or whatever. It's right. And I say it's a false measure.
I agree with you on that. I do want to change subjects though, because I want to make sure we get to your columns.
Oh yeah.
At Red State here before we run out of time. And you've got a couple of columns. One's a column, the other one's a Malcolm on the right. I'll just mention the Malcolm on the right. It's, these are short. Go over, be a VIP member at Red State or VIP Gold member, and you can say, history is the shared story of a people, but we're forgetting ours. This is something that Andrew works on, these great messages, these great podcasts. So be sure to check that out. But I want to talk to you about your column. Executions are a good thing sometimes. And I'm very conflicted about the death penalty. I really am, because I think it's been capricious. I don't think it's been racist. I think that's an overblown argument, but I think it's been capricious. I think it is a wobbly standard that's usually applied on these things. And yet sometimes some crimes really call out for something other than 3 hots and a cot for the rest of your life.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You're absolutely right, Ed. And I understand the confliction. I was conflicted for a long time, and then I happened to be working for a governor, and we had 2 death penalty cases come up. And before that, I had been interested in the subject as a reporter. Number one, we're having fewer executions. There were like 80 something in 2000. And in the first half of last year, there were 7. So the number is going down. It's going down, I think, because of the Supreme Court narrowing it to the most heinous crimes. It's not somebody who just in the passion of the moment in a bar kills somebody, but somebody who kills somebody and then cuts them up and throws the pieces to the wolves. And I mean, these horrible, horrible crimes. And you don't, as a news consumer, you don't, and this is one of the points I wanted to make in the column, you don't get the details, the awful, awful details of what these people have done, because the media thinks they're so awful. But doesn't that tell you something? You know, they say, oh, they don't want to know about cutting the top of someone's head off at breakfast. Well, maybe not. But if you're writing honestly about why this person is going to be put to death by a jury of his peers and a judge, and the government will enforce the execution, you need to understand this. Otherwise, it's just some guy who was no doubt abused in his childhood, and maybe he was homeless and he happened to get a gun, and in the passion of the moment. I mean, the media can make that out. So it's changing, and I find that subject fascinating. There's nothing wrong with it changing, but I think people tend to forget about it. I was a official witness to 2 lethal injection executions. And they're, I wouldn't say moving, they're very serious moments. And in Montana, they come in a house trailer that's been emptied out, and they have the gurney at the front, and the executioner's behind the glass, and witnesses are there, the family or whoever wants to be there from the family, usually the law enforcement agent. I was the governor's official witness. And when you come in, they're strapped on the gurney. The official asks him if he wants to make a final statement. In my case, they didn't. They've had their final meal. They've been offered a sedative if they want it. And a minister is there and it offers a prayer. And if they want it, they get it. Then there's a sedative administered. You don't see or hear anything. It's just a sedative administered, and the person goes to sleep quietly. There's no sound. And once they're asleep, which they can tell by the heart, then they administer the poison that stops the heart. And 7 or 8 minutes later, a doctor goes up and says, okay, we're done here, or says a few more minutes. When for both of them, when I had, and I suppose this is a factor of the chemical involved, there were very soft coughs once or twice, I imagine, as they were expiring. But and then people get up and leave, and then I would go out and talk to the media. It happened to be the first execution in Montana since World War II, so there was a lot of there was a lot of attention and interest in it. And just a couple of years before, the state legislature had changed it. It was hanging for all those years, and the state legislature changed it to an option for hanging and lethal injection. So yeah, it's a very serious business, and when you see on TV ISIS and whatever, it's all done willy-nilly, and thousands of people are killed innocently. But the way we do it, which is not the way the media explains it, but the way we do it in this country is very serious and methodical. The guy, the first one in Montana, he'd been on death row for 22 years of legal appeals, and finally the federal appeals court said no, there's no more grounds here. and 22 years just happened to be about the entire life of his victim, who was kidnapped, beaten, sodomized, top of her head was missing, and left to freeze at night and winter night out in a farm field. So it's pretty grisly stuff, very grisly stuff. So anyway, I wanted to explain that because this week in Pittsburgh, the federal jury will be debating whether Martin Bowers will be executed. There'll be a long legal process after this, so it's not instant. Here's an interesting historical anecdote. In 1933, just 2 or 3 weeks before Franklin Roosevelt was to be inaugurated, he was in Miami, and he was riding in a car with the mayor of Chicago, Anton Cermak, and a guy named Giuseppe Zangara went through the crowd and shot. Now the question is, was he shooting at the mayor or the president? Presumably the president, but we'll never know because he was tried and convicted. He refused to appeal, and 5 weeks later he was executed. So it wasn't 22 years; it was 5 weeks. The president was a brand new.
It would appeal. I mean, what are we to say?
Yeah, okay, well, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah. All right, well, be sure to read Andrew's column. It's a fine column, by the way, very moving column. And, Andrew's a great writer anyway, but I mean, this is actually, I think, one of your best columns that I've read, Andrew. And in part because I'm conflicted by it, and it's interesting to get this feedback.
I agree, and there's nothing wrong with being conflicted. It should be difficult. Picking a president or a person to vote for president should be difficult. It's not. It's a not, and people just do these knee-jerk. Oh, I like he wears ties that are red all the time. Yeah, it's a very serious thing, and you need to test drive them, which is the process that's going on now, and. It'll be going on for quite some time. There will be horse race coverage, endless horse race coverage. He's up, he's down. Oh, he paused. Oh, will this doom him? Remember the Hollywood Access tape with Donald Trump? Oh, that was that. He was finished as a candidate. Well, that's when they learned he wasn't finished as a candidate.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a fascinating time, but it's a serious time. It's not a party.
I agree. But we need to make this a party on the way out. It's getting pretty darn intense. So we need to get a couple of jokes of the day. Now I've got at least one for you, but
all right, you go.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay. Give me a second. I got to find it. So I got to find the first one here. So this is sort of almost in the vein of what we were just talking about. This man's in jail and his attorney comes to visit him. And the attorney says, well, look, I've got some good news and bad news. And the guy says, well, what's the bad news? He says, well, the bad news is your blood's all over the crime scene. And the DNA test proves that you did it. And the guy says, well, what's the good news? He says, well, your cholesterol level is low.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. That's the best, Ed.
Hey, your cholesterol levels go low. I mean, you got your health.
Yeah, that's right. I have one that's in similar vein. Moses comes down the mountain from meeting with God, and he gets up, and the tribe gathers in front of him. He gets up on a big boulder, and he says, I have some good news and I have some bad news.
There's a theme going on here.
Yeah, that's right. He says, the good news is I got him down to 10. The bad news is adultery's still in there.
Darn it. I was going to say damn, but that's sort of the point. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I got another one for you.
Okay, go ahead.
So two businessmen are opening up a new shop, right? And they're setting up, and this is in Florida. They're setting up. They're not ready to open yet. And the one partner says to the other, he says, I bet you some senior citizen's going to come by here, put his face to the window and ask us what we're selling. And no sooner did he say that than sure enough, this old man comes walking by, walks up to the window, looks in, and then leans over and says, "What are you selling here?" And one of the men says, "We're selling assholes." And the guy says, "Well, you're doing well. You only got two left."
Boy, you're on a roll here today.
Well, I'm getting these from jokesoftheday.net.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's good stuff. So I've got another one. This is a Myers. This is an old one. Hillary denies Trump's charges that she's a bigot. That's ridiculous. I love all people of color, whether they're Black, Asian, or working class urban Latinos between 35 and 50. And finally, I have another one, which is no doubt apocryphal, but Conan O'Brien says, Stanley Kaplan, who created the tutoring service for the SATs, has passed away. He was A, 88 years old, B, 92 years old, or C, none of the above. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice cheery thought after all that gloom and doom.
Yeah. Well, that good news. He had good news.
Yeah, good news. Yeah, good news and bad news is the theme of the day.
Got him down to 10. Yeah. You wonder how many others were there and what were they?
Well, you saw Mel Brooks's. Was it History?
Yeah, I know. Everybody mentions that.
I have in my hand these 10 commandments. Yeah. Mel Brooks, who's still with us, by the way, and
and still funny and outrageous as ever.
God bless Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Long life to Mel Brooks. He's already had one, but God bless him, and hope that he continues to do well. Made a lot of people laugh over the years and brought a lot of joy. So I want to we'll just sign off by thanking Mel Brooks for that. But I also want to thank the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, for his weekly wisdom here at the Ed.
Thank you, Ed. And have a wonderful vacation.
Thank you very much. We'll reconvene in 3 weeks.
See you then, everybody.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Why are you harassing Twitter? Jim Jordan asked Federal Trade Commission Chair Lena Khan at a Judiciary Committee hearing last week. That harassment began when Elon Musk brought journalists into Twitter to expose the federal government's censorship regime. The FTC had demanded that Musk reveal his contacts with reporters in the publication of the Twitter files, arguing that it could violate a consent decree protecting customer data. Now an analyst at Ernst & Young has testified that the FTC attempted to pressure him into a negative report on Twitter to justify punitive action. Twitter has filed a motion to terminate the consent order, leading to Jordan's question during the hearing. A federal judge has put a temporary halt to the federal government's suppression of speech, but the lesson is clear. The FTC has shown its colors as Big Brother's enforcer. Authoritarians do not retreat easily. I'm Ed Morrissey.